The title of this video is 7 Phases of the Writing Process. Most students engage in scholarly writing without knowing about or understanding the writing process. Have you thought about that? So this lecture is a quick overview of each phase of the writing process. Please note, however, that the process is recursive, which means that you don't have to follow each of the phases in order, and that you can engage in each step as many times as you need to develop your term paper. So let's begin. So the first writing phase is planning. This phase involves reviewing the instructions for the written assignments. Review the rubric and purpose of the assignment. Decide what topic you want or need to write about. Oftentimes your instructor will provide guidelines as to what the topic should be about, but students will also need to narrow down their topic. As part of this first phase, students should brainstorm ideas about what their topic or specific topic will be. For example, if the assignment is to write about a social problem experienced by people living in Appalachian regions, students will need to decide what specific social problem their paper will focus on, given that there are voluminous social problems to choose from. There are many forms of brainstorming, such as making a list. I personally like the use of mind mapping approach because it allows me to think freely without concerns about any linear approach. We'll learn more about that separately. Planning also involves deciding if there's enough written information about the topic in the literature. For example, in peer-reviewed journal articles, which is what most of your term papers need to focus on, is selecting peer-reviewed journal articles as well as your textbooks. So this moves on to the next phase of the writing process, which is researching. The researching phase is conducting a review of the literature, talking to experts in the field, and also examining your own social work practice in the field. As mentioned in previous videos, it's important to utilize peer-reviewed journal articles. The third phase coincides with the research phase, which is organizing and outlining key points or main themes that appear in the literature. Okay, now refer back to the critical reading lecture that I recorded in terms of summarizing and paraphrasing in your own words the main points discovered in the literature, or information that affirms what you already know about a specific topic, or expands your knowledge about any given specific topic that you're writing or researching. Organizing involves developing an outline about what will be included in your paper by asking who, how, what, and when questions. Note that the outline could evolve as you continue to gather more information about your selected topic. Again, the writing process should be flexible. An alternative to creating an outline, as I mentioned, is mind mapping. Now, Harrison Kunka textbook, or the reference guide, provides mind mapping as or describes mind mapping as clustering and branching. And you can find that on page 14. Note that you can always reorganize the clusters and the branches in relationship to the connection of the key points or main themes, such as cause and effect or implications for social work practice. The drafting phase of the writing process involves free writing, and you're going to be able to practice free writing in this course. It's the ability to literally jam on the computer based on your outline, your notes, your mind map, things that you already know, and without having to be concerned with perfecting your paper at this point. This is when you don't have to worry, for example, of sentence structure, grammar, or spelling just jamming on the computer. Unfortunately, many students have difficulty writing, taking time to write freely because they want their first draft to be perfect and ready to submit. And if that's what is happening for you, it's like, oh my God, I got so many things on my plate. I'm taking so many classes. I'm going to type out this paper and just send it off. Then what ends up happening is that if you have difficulty taking the time to go through the writing process, you'll end up with writer's block because you might not know where to begin. All right. So to write free or free write the first draft of your paper, you really need to dispel the idea that your first draft has to be perfect or has to be in a condition where you can go ahead and submit it. Instead, free writing involves writing for approximately 10 to 15 minutes without stopping about what you know about a topic. Again, you don't have to worry about citations because you can add that later on. And the nice thing about writing the first draft of your paper on the computer is that, you have the ability to go back, fill in additional information, delete repetitive information, tweak your sentence, add examples. But in your first draft, that's what you don't need to do. All you need to do is just jam and whatever comes to mind and write that first paper so that you can then go back and really think about, okay, what is it that I really want to focus on? Anyway, like I said, you'll have an assignment that involves free writing. Now, there's no magic number of drafts that you need to write. It's really dependent upon your need to return to the research phase, for example. Maybe you don't have enough information. So as part of the writing process, you go back and find additional articles so that you can add information. However, once you're satisfied that all the necessary information is included in your paper, you've got good examples to illustrate the points that you're trying to make, and you've got good citations, then you can go back and reorganize the information so that your paper flows better. Again, including citation support to support what you're writing and to ensure that the paper is written in third person, etc. So the next phase of the writing process is collaboration. Now, this phase involves utilizing a friend or a classmate to provide feedback about the draft that you've written. And again, this happens before you submit it, as part of your assignment. Now, for example, professors write manuscripts for journal articles, may set up a writing group, or they have a partner. They partner with a colleague to review what has been written. Students could set up something very similar, have a writing group, and maybe you want to do that, organize that with the students that are in this class, or just with one student to review each other's paper. I strongly recommend that you consider that process because, again, when you're working on a paper, it's literally this close to your face, and it's really hard to figure out if, in fact, you've said what you needed to say, you've articulated in a way that the reader's going to understand. So when you have that another person to read your paper and give you feedback, it's just really helpful. Now, at Concord and other universities, there's Turnitin.com. And this is another way of obtaining feedback for your written paper. And that's more in relationship to like your grammar and also making sure that you're not plagiarizing, right? Because that would be not a good thing to be doing as far as writing a scholarly paper. Okay, so once you've gotten feedback, now you're ready to do the actual, to engage in the actual revision phase of the writing process. And you might think, oh, well, you know, I've written now 3 drafts. Isn't that part of the revision phase? Well, this, what Harrison Kunke talked about in terms of this part of the writing process, the revision phase, is really getting down to the nitty-gritties of making sure that you've got all of the elements in the paper. This is when you need to revisit the criteria for the written assignments, review the rubric again, make sure that your paper covers all of the requirements that's required. This is also when you're looking not just at style in terms of APA style, but you're also looking at APA format. Taking into consideration the feedback from your instructor, and I'll be providing, for example, lots of feedbacks on drafts that you'll be submitting for your term paper in this course. All right, now let's see. This is also the phase where students need to go back again. You know, like I said, you're looking at style, you're looking at format. So you want to go back to the publication for the publication manual for APA to ensure that you're following the standards. Now, the final phase of the writing process, listen, is actually editing and proofreading. This is when, what I call, really looking at it with a fine-tooth comb. This is the phase when students need to check and correct their grammar, usage, punctuation, and spelling, as well as formatting, of course, such as avoiding widow and orphan lines, eliminating extra spaces between lines and paragraphs. And while it is important to read your paper out loud and slowly through the writing process, this is when reading your paper out loud and slowly is especially important. It is also a good time to utilize the APA checklist to check the format of your paper, making sure, again, you know, do you have an abbreviated title on your title page and in your running head area, all right? Okay, so in summary, the 7 phases of the writing process really is to help students to comprehensively cover any given topic that they're writing about. Please note that students are expected to follow the various phases, even for written assignments that are labeled drafts. Submitting sections, for example, of a term paper are usually considered drafts. You get feedback, so by the time you submit your final paper at the end of the semester, you've gotten a lot of feedback, you've done your revisions, you've edited it, you've made the necessary corrections. Again, after you watch this video, if you have any questions, you can wait until we meet for synchronous sessions or send me a course message with your questions and comments. Have a good day. Bye now.